This is massive for the Vancouver Canucks as we see Patrik Allvin announce today they have signed defenseman Marcus Pettersson to a 6-year extension. We're going to break down this contract, what it holds for the future, and the implications later on in this episode. Before we start, I just want to give a huge shout out to everyone watching this. If you're part of the 72.6% that's not subscribed yet, and you're enjoying this daily Canucks content, make sure to go down and hit that subscribe button. It's completely free, and we'll keep you up to date on everything to do around this team. But that, Griffin, we got to hop straight into this today because we've seen that Patrik Allvin just signed, and this is completely breaking news, Marcus Pettersson to a 6-year extension at a 5.5 AAV. Now, looking at this, we do see Patrik Allvin come out and say in just a couple of games, Marcus has already shown us the type of leadership, poise, and character that we want in a top 4 defenseman. We've seen this already come out a few days ago where Rick Tocchet went in and said Sidney Crosby texted him saying the Canucks got good players in both Marcus Pettersson and Drew O'Connor, specifically praised Marcus Pettersson's leadership. Now looking at this, I know this just came out too. What's your initial thoughts to this extension?
I love it. I think this is exactly what the Canucks needed as far as defensive reinforcements. This is one of the trades that we were most excited about as far as all the moves that the Canucks made. We've been very hyped talking about it off camera, how excited we are about Marcus Pettersson, and even the fans as well. Multiple live streams where people are in there saying how excited they are to see what Marcus Pettersson's able to do. And even Penguins fans saying how good he was on the Penguins and how much of a gem that we got in Pettersson. I think out of all the trades, this is definitely the biggest asset that we did get for it. I know Hedl made a nice big splash in his first game with us as well, but Pettersson really has made a nice big splash, even bigger splash over these first 2 games with the Canucks. And we knew that an extension was coming. We heard multiple reports coming out throughout the week that, hey, an extension is going to be coming and it's probably going to be long-term for Marcus Pettersson because the Canucks are so sold on him. And I love that they went and did that because, like Allvin said, this guy has the potential to be one of those top 4 defenseman guys that we need. And just like how we see Carson Soucy on the trade block, Marcus Pettersson is now that person to fill in that void that Carson Soucy likely will be leaving when we move on from him. So whoever is going to be his line mate, whether it's Tyler Myers or somebody else that revolves in and out of there, I can't wait to see what more he does on this team because like we've seen many times before, when someone comes over to the Canucks, they tend to get a career year out of this Canucks system, and that's what this coaching can bring out of them, and this team chemistry can bring out of these players as well to make their name known in a way. We saw Connor Garland this season, even last year. He had a great year, a career year last year. He's having an even bigger year this year, and a lot of people are getting more recognition on his name as well.
And I mean, looking at this, Allvin continued on to say he has such a calming influence on the ice. He uses his long-reach hockey smarts to break up plays and has a good first pass to help us create more offensively. You can pause this, you can read through it. Both the short-term and long-term he spoke on. This contract, in my opinion, is huge for this team. I mean, looking at the extension, we know it's $5.5 million each year for 6 years. This expires when he's 35 years old. The biggest thing with Marcus Pettersson is we've seen how much he can do through his NHL career, and we've seen it through the short stint he's had with the Canucks so far. Signing him to this extension, 5.5, I think is an absolute steal. Seeing the cap going up $9 million next year and set to rise another $8 to $9 million the following season, this is going to look more and more like a bargain as the season goes on. Now looking at this, there are some things with the contract. The full no move / no trade for the first 3 years of the deal, followed by a 15-team no trade in the final 3 years of the deal. Marcus Pettersson is a guy that never got enough credit on the Pittsburgh Penguins. We've seen him stationed with Chris Letang. We've seen him play with Erik Karlsson. He was always shadowed by these 2 flashy big name players. Marcus Pettersson comes in as the second defenseman or second line and a guy that can hold down the second pairing that we haven't really had in quite some time. Soucy did it a bit this last year. He hasn't been able to reenact it this year, but looking at Marcus Pettersson, he adds so much insurance on this back end, not only on the second pairing, but with Quinn Hughes out right now, we can see him step in on that top pairing with Hronek. Looking at this and with the length of the contract, do you think the Canucks kind of got a steal when it goes back to only moving a first-round pick for this guy?
Absolutely. And for the reasons, like you said, where on Pittsburgh, he was overshadowed by so many of the other defensive dogs that they had on that team, where he wasn't able to get the due that he was deserving of. And now coming over to Vancouver, where he has that opportunity to really shine and be known on a team, not just a guy that's a complimentary guy or just a depth guy. Now he's on a team where he can be a guy, not just a guy. And so with this, with the Canucks, I think they're in a great spot now. Will he be able to continue? I know he's getting up there in age. That's going to be a thing that they're going to have to watch over the next few seasons. And with that 15 team no trade clause, I think it's just funny to see that half the team is just off limits for him to be moved to. I've always found that funny whenever we see 12 to 15 teams on someone's no trade clause. It just always makes me giggle, and I think it's hilarious. But I do really like the deal that they are getting him at, just a bit more expensive than what he is currently at with his current contract that's about to expire, but making sure they wanted to lock him down so they don't potentially lose him to free agency. I really love that for obvious reasons. It saves us, the fans, and the management a lot of stress as far as who are they going to bring back, especially when we're heading into an offseason where Brock Boeser is going to be needing to be re-signed if they re-sign him, and as well as some other players. So having Pettersson taken care of it takes a lot of the focus off of that, and now that's one less player you have to worry about come contract time.
And I mean, looking at this, JFresh, if you're on Twitter at all, you know who JFresh is. He did his card on Marcus Pettersson with a projected WAR percentage of being 90. You can look through this. He's very good defensive stick. His defense doesn't look great on this card, but he did continue on to say not too concerned about the defensive drop-off. Given the environment he was in this season, he can be utilized a lot better in Vancouver. He's generally been a strong two-way play driver. JFresh does everything just following hockey, and he's actually a Pittsburgh Penguins fan, going in depth on Marcus Pettersson. Looking at this, though, Griffin, something a lot of people are not going to talk about is the fact they have these defensemen locked up long-term. Quinn Hughes only has 2 years after this year, but that is 2 full seasons before he's extended. Filip Hronek has been signed 7.2. Marcus Pettersson joins this team on the 6-year extension, $5.5 million. Carson Soucy, who may be moved, still has next year. Tyler Myers has 2 years. Petey is signed for 2 more years. This Canucks team has a lot of defensemen locked up on very good contracts for the next couple of seasons. You need a couple guys to resign. Derek Forbort, Noah Juleson, probably both will leave this team. But looking at this, do you think we're finally getting together the best defensive core this Canucks team had in quite some time, and on great contracts? I know the biggest thing is when they traded for Zadorov, lost him in free agency, Allvin made it very clear, we don't want to lose people for nothing. He got tidy work done, signed this guy. Do you think this D-core can compete for a cup, especially with what they have going into the next couple of seasons?
I don't think they're there quite yet, but they're getting there. This defensive core, just looking at that graphic, seeing it in a big wide like that, seeing how they have these guys locked down for quite some time. Marcus Pettersson, Filip Hronek, Quinn Hughes, Elias Pettersson as well. Then you have the ones like Carson Soucy, Noah Juleson, and Derek Forbort. I think they're as good as gone, like you said. So with this, there is a lot of things here where the Canucks, this defensive core is looking very different almost overnight or in the past few weeks, kind of. And it does look a bit more reassuring, but I still think we're still a few pieces away from being one of those contending teams. But I think that with the trade deadline and heading into next season, I think if it's not this season that we make it where it's very shaped up, it'll be next season where we have Tom Willander ready to jump up and some other defensive prospects as well who will be ready by then as well.
And I mean, looking at this, these are some of the contracts they have going into next season. Mancini's a guy that I'm super high on and I think can take over Soucy's role or jump within this lineup as early as this season. Tom Willander is a guy that's set to join this team from college after that concludes. Looking at this, I think the defense looks awesome. And I'm going to go out to say, listen, losing JT Miller did suck. We know the drama. We understand he had to go. I think the Canucks came out with bandits. We see on the back end alone a top 4 defenseman locked up long-term. Victor Mancini, who's looking like a top 6 defenseman at the very worst. You add in Hedl. This trade looks outstanding for the Canucks. But what's your guys' thoughts on this extension? What's your thoughts on Marcus Pettersson joining this team for 6 more seasons. What's your thoughts on how Allvin and Jim have kind of handled the JT Miller situation? What's your thoughts on the assets they got back? And are you happy with what they're doing currently? What's the next move that thinks you're going to happen? Because there's so much to happen. But that'd be it for this episode of Canucks Digest. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to go down and leave a like, subscribe, share this with your friends. We'll be back later for another episode, so keep your eye out for that. But I've been your host, Mark, and my co-host, Griffin, and take care.